This is the Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
All right, 21 minutes after the hour. Welcome back, everyone. Hey, thanks for joining me today. If you missed any part of the conversation, hit the archives, okay? In fact, you may want to visit the archives. Dr. Duke Pesta was with me on two other occasions. We're going to talk about the Common Core curriculum. It's well worth getting up to speed on. We'll talk more about that as well. And, of course, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com, keyword The Drew Mariani Show. And in the studio with me now, Dr. Duke Pesta, Academic Director of the Freedom Project, or Freedom Project Education, and has been very active in educational reform. He's a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. And, Doctor, good to have you back in studio with me.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
You and I were talking during the last break regarding Bill O'Reilly's book, Killing Jesus, and you have a great observation. I want you to share that with everyone as well.
Yeah, you know, the crucifixion of Christ is so unusual. I mean, Pilate did it to placate the Jewish authorities. Christ was nailed to the cross as opposed to being tied to it. The carrying of the cross that he did, everything about that crucifixion scene is anomalous. Mm-hmm. So I would respectfully ask Mr. O'Reilly, why do you think that this would have been a typical crucifixion when it came to Christ and how he hung on the cross? And given the importance of this to the Jewish authorities, why wouldn't they have allowed people to get closer to him? It's just an interesting historical thing to think about.
Yeah, you're an author yourself. I mean, I'm surprised that this would even become an issue, why Bill would do that, because there were eyewitnesses that we know were there. We got John, and you have the Virgin Mary, you have the holy women who were there, you've got Launtius, the Centurion. I mean, I'm sure word got around, because after he died and the veil split, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in Jerusalem at that moment in time. I'm sure the apostles wanted to know what the final words were.
Well, and think about it, too. This is from the Roman perspective, this is the execution of a traitor. Mm-hmm. So that would have been a different animal altogether. But, you know, you asked why did O'Reilly want to write this? If you think about it, he did Killing Lincoln, he did Killing Kennedy, mm-hmm. and he's just working his way up the food chain. Right?
You're right. Who else is going to sell books? That's interesting. Hey, you got to write a book on Common Core.
Yes.
This is fascinating. And, you know, we have not talked in my 4 o'clock Central hour here, and this is going to be new to a lot of people. You've been on the air in the past. I only recently discovered what the Common Core curriculum was all about a couple of weeks ago before I invited you on, and I want to bring other listeners up to speed as well. Let me just throw it to you. Let me let you explain what Common Core is, why it is something that we should be concerned about, and the impact it's having on those states and institutions that have embraced it.
Sure. Common Core is, when you boil it down to its essence, it is effectively going to be a federal curriculum, a national curriculum for education from K through 12. And the interesting thing about it is that unlike other big government programs like Obamacare that at least went through Congress, we voted in the House mm-hmm. and the Senate on it, Common Core was written in private, written very secretly by a couple of lobbyist groups out in Washington, D.C. The National Governors Association was one of them. And these groups, activist groups, were given millions, over $100 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they put these curriculum ideas together, the skeleton of this curriculum together. And then, very interestingly, the No Child Left Behind Education mm-hmm. Act, that's under George Bush, Teddy Kennedy wrote it back in the early 2000s. It's been such a nightmare for public schools for education. The curriculum is outcome-based education. Common Core is the extension of No Child Left Behind. Here's the irony, Drew. Everything that was wrong with No Child Left Behind is magnified in Common Core. Outcome-based education, radical nationalized testing aspects of it. And so what happened was that the Obama administration in 2008, 2009, they created this program called Race to the Top, mm-hmm. where they gave millions of dollars to the states, cash-strapped states for their budgets. And with one proviso, we'll give you all this money now, but in a few years, when we roll out Common Core standards, your state's on the hook for them. So all these states signed up to get this free money. 46 states out of 50 took that money. And then earlier this year, when Common Core standards were officially rolled out, we're all on the hook for them.
That's absolutely amazing. Now, a lot of states who have embraced Common Core are seeing a decline, aren't they? A decrease in academic productivity amongst their students.
Sure, to the degree that it's already been put in place, it's not working out real well.
So what happens now? They want out, and what's the government saying to them?
Well, you know, we saw in Georgia a few weeks ago, actually about a month ago, the state of Georgia decided to pull out, as have many states. And the federal government basically told them that you can do that, but we're taking millions away from your budget. And so you bribe the states on the way in. We'll give you all this money, but you got to take it sight unseen when we roll it out. Wow. And now as states try to withdraw, there's that blackmail coming out of it.
So the roots of this come from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. is there an agenda there?
Absolutely.
And let's talk maybe about that, because the Obama administration has embraced this. And as you've talked about, they've now bribed states to take it. What's the agenda, and what's so dangerous about it?
Well, Bill Gates is on record as being very much in favor of one global education. The outreach, the activism he does through his foundation is very heavily dedicated to promoting United Nations causes. One of the things he's very big in is abortion and birth control in places like Africa, sort of a pseudo-eugenics program. And so this idea, this utopian idea of every student in the world in class at the same time learning the same things.
Wow. That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. It's 27 after the hour. If you want to join us, too, you can call 877-ROME, 777-877-ROME, 777. Rather than come out and just totally bash the program, is there any silver lining to it? Is there anything good? I mean, of course, there's tons of money, I'm sure, put into the development of this program. And we haven't even got into some of the fundamental problems with the math programs and what they're actually teaching there. And we can highlight some of that. But is there anything good in this?
Well, I mean, in the sense that it reiterates that we want to have standards for our kids, but we've always had them. Education, by definition, is standards. The standards we're trying to implement are the wrong way of going about things. And the danger is that once you push it up to the federal level, unlike before, the danger here is for the first time, this is going to operate out of the federal government, which means the way we've been able to kill bad education in the past is local school boards, teachers on the ground saying, hey, this doesn't work. If Common Core goes through at the fully federalized level that they want it to, you got a local problem in your school board, you're going to take it to Washington, right? And you know what that's going to be.
Oh, yeah. And what's it do for the national deficit, too? Is it going to cost the country more money?
Billions, yep, absolutely.
Really?
The standardized tests, the nationalized tests are being written. ACT and SAT are shifting over to them.
Wow.
The textbooks alone are going to are all having to be rewritten, and to make all these schools up to code on this, and the technology to be able to do some of the data mining that they're going to want to do is really expensive.
Now, how far off are we? How many states have already embraced it, and is it spreading across the country? Because, Catholic schools don't have to take this particular curriculum, although I'm shocked because there are a number of them that have already embraced it. I'm thinking, why would you do that?
It is shocking. Over 100 Catholic dioceses have embraced it. Let me answer the first part of your question.
Yeah.
Because of the No Child Left Behind Race to the Top program, 46 states were on the hook for this. Without having to do a single thing. Then they rolled out those standards so that people could really get a good look at them back in March and April. And in the ensuing 7 or 8 months, people have been really freaking out, as you can imagine, seeing what these standards are. So in the space of the last 4 or 5 months, well over a dozen states have completely withdrawn. Others are partially withdrawing. And as you know, Drew, Wisconsin's Governor Scott Walker just last week came out and said Wisconsin can do better than Common Core.
Wow.
And we're having state hearings now.
Big stuff. Look, we'll take your calls, your questions, your comments. You can dial in toll-free at 877-766-3777. Taking a look at the Common Core curriculum. You may never have heard about it before. We'll talk more when I return. All right, 26 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back. I'm Drew Mariani, joined by Professor of English at the UW Oshkosh, Dr. Duke Pesta. He's been with me in the past. I've invited him back to make you aware of a very controversial issue. It's called Common Core, the Common Core curriculum. Hey, look, bottom line here, education, as parents, that is our primary duty. We're the primary educators of our children. Should be one of the highest priorities for all of us. So when we see this type of insidious curriculum begin to infect our kids. And look, we're only talking math and English today. Wait till you hear what happens with the science and the health programs that are rolled out. Wait till you see when you abdicate your authority as a parent to teach your kids and keep it at the most common level and let big government do it. There's a litany of problems that come with it. Let me just share with you very quickly here just a little bit of math. Here's a little bit of what's been leaking out. A lot of states have adopted Common Core. Parents are disturbed what they're hearing, and here's why. They hear their children come home with homework, and they got a math problem. Here's a math problem. 2 bridges in a town. One's 465 feet long. The other's 325 feet long. Which one's longer, and how do you know? It's kind of a no-brainer, right? Then they're disturbed. The teacher was told at the workshop, if a child tells you that 2 plus 2 is 5, don't say it's wrong. Just say, instead ask them how they came up with that answer. It's relative. I mean, there's no truth here. And Dr. Pesta, we were just talking about that. We'll go to the phones in a second here, but we were just saying that there is no truth in this. And that's kind of the mantra of our day, isn't it? It's your own truth.
Yeah, what's really frustrating about the both the people who crafted this so secretly and then the program itself is it starts from a premise of profound skepticism. The idea that even math and science, and we see it in the curriculum, gender, right? Even gender is made up. We saw what happened in California with the law that they passed that kids as young as kindergarten and first grade, second grade, if they decide, if they feel like little boys feel like they're little girls, they have to be allowed into the ladies' restroom. They have to be allowed to play on boys' football teams. This kind of stuff. I don't know if you saw it about a week ago in Argentina. A 6-year-old girl was given a sex change operation.
Yeah.
All right. And so nothing
six
is
years
6
old.
years old.
A 6-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to me mind-boggling. They're not old enough to
Before
make that
the
decision.
hormones even kick in.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phones. We'll start down south in Texas. Anonymous, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi. Okay, so I've been trying to figure out how and why it's controversial. It is in our school, in our Catholic school, and I'm not sure how much they're using it. I've heard that it might, I think it might be supplemental, but I just have been trying to figure out why is it so controversial? Why did the state of Texas get rid of it? I think they were doing C-scope, which is similar, but nevertheless, I'm just having...
It's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a great... Let me let Dr. Pesta... What's the controversy over Common Core?
Well, everything about it's controversial. The curriculum is radical. If you are living in Texas, you know all about C-scope. And some of the people involved with the C-scope curriculum are the same people involved with Common Core, including La Raza, that radical separatist Hispanic organization. Some of the curriculum included little girls being required to dress up as Muslim girls in burqas from head to toe to demonstrate cultural sensitivity. One of the standards that third graders had to do was go home and draw a new flag for a make-believe communist country.
Wow.
There's all this really unbelievable stuff, and Common Core's tame compared to what you had in C-scope.
Wow.
But the other thing you should know down in Texas is that the Catholics, over 100 Catholic dioceses, excuse me, across the country have taken this. And we've talked to a lot of priests and bishops. We've talked to a lot of people. And the fact is that there's a huge disconnect between the Catholic clergy and the people in charge of education in the districts. We have been stunned how little our prelates, our clerics, how little our clergy know about exactly what Common Core is and how far in some of these Catholic schools it turns out that this is. It's a real shock when people figure it out.
Well, Anonymous, thank you for your call. Let me go to Gail and Nina. Great question from her. Gail, good afternoon. Hi, Gail. You're on the air.
Hi, Drew. This is Gail. Last time this guest was on your program, I had talked to my co-catechist. I teach catechism. Mm-hmm. And one of the catechists came back with a document from the bishop that says there's nothing wrong with this program.
All right, well, that's a great point. So let me throw that directly to you, Doctor. Do the bishops approve of Common Core?
I have yet to meet a bishop who has formally endorsed it. I have talked to a number of bishops in various places. And the one thing I can tell you is that I've always, and priests too, there's been a lot of surprise when they see what Common Core is. There are a lot of school districts, Catholic school districts, who've implemented this. Mm-hmm. And to the surprise, occasionally to the surprise of some of the people in charge. I have not seen that document, but it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere across the country there are priests or bishops who might be for it. I have not encountered any yet.
Right. And as it unfolds, it's relatively new. They may not understand the ultimately what looms in the not-too-distant future in terms of what's going to be rolled out, especially with the sex education. You and I were talking at the break. Maybe before I take another call, address that issue, because we're dealing with kindergartner and first grade children. What are they going to, after math and science, the wacky math we just talked about, what are they going to be getting in terms of science and health?
Well, science and health are coming out next, and that's another insidious aspect of that. They rolled out the least controversial subjects, which are very controversial. And so I've seen the prototype of the National Sexuality Standards. And the standards are that at certain grade levels, they have to be able to discuss cogently certain things. So, for instance, by the time second graders, before they can make it to third grade, by the time second grade is over, these kids are going to be required to identify different kinds of family structures. Oh. They're going to have to be able to make an argument why every different kind of family type is equally valid. We're talking at 5, 6, and 7 years old now.
Wow, that's unbelievable. All right, we'll go back. Gail, thank you for your call. Anonymous, calling from an anonymous location. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the call. I just would like to make a comment and ask a specific question.
Sure.
Everything that's being said is absolutely true. My kids go to a classical independent Catholic school, And we have just come across how insidious this all is. One thing you got to know right up front, you can't buy books anymore. We have a grammar book that we use, and when we called to replace the grammar book, they said, well, which one do you want? Do you want the Common Core book or the other book? And I said, which one's better? And she said, you don't want the Common Core book.
Wow.
Plus, like, you want to buy Shakespeare, you can get 2 copies at a time. If you want to get, there are these books about Americanism that are very good and sound and solid. The only place you can get them is overseas, and they're hundreds of dollars. And this is a $20 book. So the reality of it is, and what everybody needs to know even about, because the reason my kids go to an independent school versus a Catholic school is because the Catholic schools have embraced this years ago, because all of the textbooks that they use are textbooks that you get in public schools. And so for them, this is a natural feed, and for most parents, they don't recognize that the fact that the political agenda has actually been in their history books, their social study books, and their English books for years. But my question to you, because the one thing I have heard is that you are required, if you adopt core curriculum, you can only add 15% of your own curriculum, which would be like your religion class in an 8-hour day. That would be like a 45-minute class, and I'm thinking high school here.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, all the Catholic schools and the bishops are saying, oh, no, we don't have to follow all of the standards that everybody has. And like in the state of Wisconsin, they now have voucher schools in Catholic schools, and they are told that they are now, if you're receiving money from the government, that you will be required to adopt Common Core. And since your guest is from Wisconsin, I was wondering if he could speak it out.
How does Common Core affect voucher schools?
Well, I don't know if you've heard of the Senator Olson and Kestrel bill that's now currently being debated at the State House. Senator Luther Olson, who's a Republican from the Ripon area, he's put forth a bill that says that any school in the state that takes any public money, including Catholic schools who take vouchers, that if those kids, when they graduate for a certain number of years, don't do as well as other kids on these Common Core centralized tests, the DPI in Wisconsin will have the ability to take over those schools.
Really?
Any school that gets any public money. And so you make a brilliant point that has to be said. This is the shame of it all, that Common Core textbooks have been with us for years now. Common Core as a program is only just beginning to get rolled out formally. And a lot of the textbooks for use in Catholic schools already have huge aspects of what is Common Core in them, and including the world history, including the world history book is particularly insidious in the sense that it goes out of its way to minimalize Catholicism and Christianity and elevate Islam correspondingly. And this is already in the schools. Again, the idea that somehow you're going to take this curriculum and you're going to keep what you want and use and discard the rest of it as these other standards keep rolling out, as all the national tests go Common Core. I mean, that's a devil's bargain, it seems to me. I mean, why would we as Catholic schools, who already have superior educational standards in most instances, why would we be out in front of the public schools who can't get out of it? You see all these states and all these educators now saying this is a mistake, including Wisconsin now, who's rethinking this. And while all this tumult is going on, Common Core has never been tried, it's never been tested, it's never been measured. Our Catholic schools in many instances have decided, hey, this is a great idea. If it's good for the public schools, it's good for our kids. And you got to ask yourself the question if you're a Catholic mom and dad. I know you've already asked it. Your kids are in independent schools. What are we paying all that money for if the curriculum is going to be largely the same and all these really divisive and in many respects anti-Christian elements are part of the curriculum?
Is that part of the agenda here? Is it really an anti-Christian program to kind of make dilute Christianity in these Christian schools?
It's any truth belief other than governmentism, right? This is a tremendously statist curriculum. Yep. There was an assignment given in a southern Wisconsin school that's now on the internet, whereby kids had to go home and write a little essay explaining how government was just like family.
Oh, my Lord.
All right? We're talking about middle school kids.
Sounds like Russia.
There you go.
It's interesting. Let's go to Anonymous, calling us from an anonymous location. Hey, Anonymous.
Hi, am I on the air?
You are. Welcome.
Hi. I've been doing a lot of research about the Common Core myself, and my bottom line is I believe it is Bill Gates wanting population control. And there's a lot of propaganda that I've been looking at in the new textbooks that are coming out that say there's a bar graph that you have to make about does contraception work. And there was another bar graph in a math textbook that's out there to purchase right now that says that there's a popular actor without his shirt on, and you have to graph the correlation for the number of minutes that he has a shirt off to the amount of money that the movie made. So I'm seeing this with eyes that see and ears that hear. And once you know that this is nefarious, you just have new eyes to see what's out there. My question is, what are we to do about it?
Great question.
You also raise a great point. The curriculum, the sexuality standards are truly shocking. We mentioned a little bit about them being rolled out, but there are two organizations that you'll know. One of them is Planned Parenthood, and the other is a group called GLEN for Gay and Lesbian and Bisexual Transgender Activism. Both of Planned Parenthood and this GLEN group are writing parallel curriculum for the Common Core. And one of the agendas is, you're not going to believe this, every single class, every single subject has to incorporate gay-friendly language. So if your kids are in a math class, it's going to be mandated, if this goes through, that math problems have to be non-heteronormative. In other words, you can't say Johnny has 2 apples and Janie has 3. What you have to say is Johnny has 3 apples and his husband Joey has 2 apples. You have to work this kind of framing strategy into science, math, history, philosophy. The question is about what do we do about it? From the perspective of Catholic schools, I would say we are having these hearings in Wisconsin now. Get out there and let your state legislators know. Go to your bishops. Go to the bishops in your districts. Don't go to the education administrators. Go to the bishops. Go to the people who have the final say. I guarantee you're going to get a more sympathetic response from the pastoral care, from our shepherds in the bishops' offices than you are going to get from the educational administrators, who in almost every instance are the ones who put this in.
All right. I thank you very much, Anonymous. Appreciate your call.
One more question.
Go ahead.
What are the public schools to do?
Okay.
Well, we're on the verge now, right? We were stonewalled all summer. We were supposed to have these public hearings in Wisconsin on Common Core, give the people a chance to have their say, and Senator Luther Olson stonewalled those all summer long. We are in a position. Last week, Governor Scott Walker came out. This was huge. Governor Walker came out and said in an interview, we can do better than Common Core, and we need to have these hearings. We need to let the people of Wisconsin know what's going on. Tomorrow, Thursday, at the State House in Madison, huge comment from 12 to 8. People can turn out and give their advice. I'll be testifying in Wisconsin tomorrow afternoon at the State House about the dangers of Common Core. Get your voice heard. There's going to be, over the next 3 weeks, there's going to be meetings in Fond du Lac, Wausau, and Eau Claire. So if you can make one of those, make your voices heard. We are in the best position since these were rolled out, both in the Catholic schools and in the public, to roll them back. But the bishops, the administrators, and the public school, your congressmen and senators in the state need to hear from you.
And you're speaking Wisconsin, of course, is a national show in a lot of other areas, Texas, Twin Cities, places like that all over the country. The same thing is taking place in these states?
Absolutely. There are some states that have quietly adopted it and not worried about it. They tend to be the northeastern states, right?
Oh, sure.
But there are a lot of states where this is an issue now. And seriously, in the last 5 or 6 months, almost 15 states have partially or wholly withdrawn. Dozens more are in the same situation as Wisconsin, on the verge of having a big meltdown. So Florida, the biggie, Florida, just last week, Governor Scott said he will not allow Florida schools to be subject to the national Common Core testing, which basically means Common Core is effectively dead there in that regard. So things are starting to move in the right direction.
All right, well, it's good. It's 11 minutes before the top of the hour. If you're on hold, I'll get you on the air. Appreciate your patience. My guest today, Dr. Duke Pesta, we're talking a little bit about the Common Core curriculum, how subtly and quietly it has been introduced, how nefarious it actually is, and how detrimental it will be to the educational system and to our children in the future. Stay with me. I'll be back. All right, 9 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back, everyone. So good to be with you today. If you're just joining me, I'm in the studio with Professor Duke Pesta. He is a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. He's also the academic director of Freedom Project Education, and he's on the front lines trying to raise awareness to the real problem that the Common Core curriculum, which is being introduced to schools across the nation, And many Catholic schools and others are beginning to embrace it, I think blindly, the problems that it poses. Now, I sit back here, we look at Obamacare and what that has brought, but it went through a legislative process and went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Should we contact our elected officials? I mean, did this go to vote? I mean, what's the background on this? How does this get introduced without anyone doing their due diligence?
Yeah, and here's what I'd say. Even if you are, and in all the radio shows I've done, I've yet to get a caller for this, pro-Common Core, but even if you're out there and you're pro-Common Core, this should really annoy you. This was done by small lobbying groups, hugely funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. Nobody ever voted on this. Not the president had a say in vote. The Congress, the Senate never saw this legislation. The governors of states, state legislatures, school boards, teachers, nobody. No one was consulted. This was given. It was not voted on. There's been no democratic process here, and this affects every single public school kid in this country. And for some reason, all the Christian and Catholic schools that have decided to hop on this bandwagon as well.
That's amazing. All right, we'll go back to the phones. Lynn's been waiting for a while. She joins us from Wisconsin. Hi, Lynn.
Hi. As I understand it, Wisconsin has signed up for the Smarter Balance side of Common Core, where there's also Park. What is the difference between the two?
Well, there's not much when you associate it with Park, because Park is going to be one of the two big testing consortiums, nationalized Common Core standard tests. So all the rest, to tell you the truth, is just semantics, because what teachers are going to have to do is not teach for knowledge, not teach creatively, teach the prefabricated standards, and pray they get their kids there or they're going to get fired. And you know as well as I do, and we saw this with No Child Left Behind, when you set these outcome-based education standards, the purpose is to get every kid to them, and if you can't, you have to keep withdrawing the standards. You have to keep lowering them. You can't leave anybody behind, right? And so this is the problem with No Child and all these outcome-based education programs that are based on testing. Of course, all kids aren't going to respond the same to the same subjects. So the only way you can get all kids to a standard is to keep lowering the standard.
Well, that's frightening. Hey, thank you, Lynn. Appreciate the call. Let me go to Rich in Chicago. Great question here for you. Rich, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, you guys. Thank you for having this discussion. It's wonderful.
You're welcome.
My question is, I teach CCD Religious Ed at our parish, and I know our parish has started to institute this program, and I keep asking, what is this program all about? And I really would like to get more information about it, because I read about information in New York State where they had this program, or maybe it might have been New Jersey, and they're backing away from it.
That's exactly right. A lot of the public schools are really backing off, even as the Catholics, many Catholic schools are starting to get more involved. There's all sorts of places to get information. We've got an hour-long video on our website at Freedom Project, fpeusa.org. Go to the Common Core link. You can watch it absolutely free. You're going to get an hour of resources on Common Core, the good and the worst and the bad and the worst aspects of it. You can see that free. There's all sorts of links at fpeusa.org to all sorts of articles. I know Drew's going to go. He's posted articles in the past. I'm sure he'll do more of that again in the future. But it's something to keep your eye on. And you ask a great question. Why, when so many states are withdrawing or trying to withdraw, are we as Catholic educators, as Catholic schools, why are we linking ourselves more closely to it? Even if it's the greatest curriculum in the world, I'd be so happy to admit I'm wrong 5 years from now. Right. If this is wonderful. But you know what? I was just going to say, we as Catholic schools, we can watch for a year, and if they're great, we can adopt it. Why are we doing it now?
I agree.
Well, my other part of that question is, if our curriculum, education Catholic-wise, started the whole thing, why would we be following somebody else who's coming in behind it?
It doesn't make any sense. And everybody acknowledges that Catholic standards are already higher than Common Core standards. You can't possibly improve your Catholic standards this way. All you can do is make them much more secular, much more materialist, and much more in line with what the government wants.
Hey, Richard, thanks for the call.
No problem. I was just going to ask one more thing, if I could.
Please.
On testing, how do parishes then go to help their students standardize to be competitive with other parishes? And I can get off. And you can
that's another great question. Now, go ahead.
I would love to see the Catholics. Here's what the Catholic schools would have such a boom in enrollment. You know how many moms and dads are going to want to get their kids out of this public school program? Do you know the Catholic schools would they'd be building a new Catholic school on every block if the Catholic schools just taught Catholic curriculum and developed their own traditional Catholic way of testing. You'd have 5,000 Catholic schools in every city. And yet we're going the other way. We've decided we've got to become more like the public schools. It makes not a lick of sense.
All right. Hey, Rich, great questions. Joe in Minneapolis, you've been holding a long time. Sir, thanks for your patience.
Thank Thank you. I'm so glad you guys are talking about this. And I clearly this is bigger than I think most of us realize and recognize, because it sounds like we're talking about a spiritual battle here in the truest sense, because our Catholic schools right now seem like the approach to this is very much on the defensive, when as Catholics and in this time of evangelization, we should be on the offensive. I think it's kind of ironic that the initial CCC could stand for Common Core Curriculum when we know what they really stand for.
I love that.
Yeah, and
cool.
And our children don't need Common Core. Our children need, excuse me for trying to sound so clever as this, but our children don't need Common Core. They need communion, and they need it every day. And when you take your children to a Catholic school to enroll them, ask them if they might be able to receive Jesus every day. Unfortunately, right now, the answer is no. I do not understand that, but I can't think of anything more that our children need every day, and that Jesus would like to give himself to them.
Bravo, Joe. Let me leave it at that. I think you bring up a great point, and that's what, again, goes back to us as parents. We're primary educators. Make sure you do your due diligence and understand, where your kids are being taught and what they're exposed to. Final question out of St. Charles. David, I got less than a minute. I want Dr. Duke to get to you on this one.
Hi, Doctor.
Hello.
I guess I don't know. It was more of a question or a comment. I'm a Catholic school teacher. I just went to a workshop with Sam here, one of the book providers, and we had talked, and they explained to us that really the Common Core is more of a basis that they would like all the students to have across the nation, and any school can really go above that. So I don't know if that's really lowering the standards. I know at Catholic schools they mentioned that.
Go ahead, Doctor. David, I got to hold it right there. I got less than 30 for you, so you got to make it brief.
Theoretically, that sounds great, but all the curriculum, when the Catholic schools go to Common Core, good luck finding non-Catholic Common Core textbooks. The market's going to change. If you want to do something different, you will no longer be able to.
All right, Doctor, thank you. The website for more information, freedomproject.com. I'm Drew Mariani. Until tomorrow, God bless everyone. Have a great night.